We love it.
No,
We got a lot of them.
We do, right.
87,000 extras.
Exactly.
So Fox and Friends for this Tuesday starts right now.
They have a quick reaction team now just formed to respond quickly to the blizzard of executive orders and actions that the president's doing. And I just don't know if they have enough to stop it. Number one, they don't understand it, a lot of it. But take a look at this list of cuts that have already been put out by DOJ. And please tell me where the City Hotel for migrants. So think about that. FEMA says, we're out of money. I can't help the people in North Carolina and Florida. Meanwhile, you writing a check simultaneously out to New York, who've been charged roughly between $7 and $10 billion because of 4 years of Joe Biden. And he just gave them a stiff arm until, of course, disaster hit. And the project giving tax policy advice to Liberia, it's way overdue. This comes in a very paltry $17 million. We often discuss this. And then $9 million for Central American Gender Assessment Services.
Right. And Brian, those are just cuts they found yesterday. Yesterday, we also had the great senator from the great state of Iowa, Joni Ernst, on, and she reminded us that, you know, when you see that DOJ went in and they've found so much stuff and they're able to hoover out all these things. Remember, it was 3 weeks ago or so when the Republicans, the DOJ caucus, met with the DOJ people, and back then there were only like 5 or 10 of them, and they gave them lists. And in fact, Joni Ernst gave them a list of 8 pages of stuff that they could cut. And so as soon as these teams go in, they say, okay, let's look for this thing. Okay, there it is, and we'll check it off. And Donald Trump likes nothing more than having Democrats whose hair is on fire over these cuts then have to defend the indefensible. Really? You're for that government waste right there?
Oh, my gosh, Steve. If you are a Republican or a Trump supporter, you hope Democrats continue to fight back against DOJ and Elon Musk, because they're fighting back against cutting bureaucracy and saving taxpayer dollars. And I think Democrats need to ask themselves which argument is going to animate the American people more.
Well, the problem is that traditionally Republicans have been known to be bad at PR. Like, considered lame, they don't know message, they don't know how to stay on task. But not only do you have Donald Trump, who's excellent at PR and producing and putting out the numbers every day, but you got a whole cabinet that have tons of media experience that are showing every single day what they're doing. And I'm sorry, I just can't skip over the migrants getting almost $60 million. I feel lied to. I thought New York was playing for that. I had no idea that was federal money from FEMA. When I went to North Carolina and those people were struggling, they were targeting Trump voters and saying, oh, if there's a Trump sign in front of the house, we're not going to serve you. We found that through the memo. But you had no problem giving the legal $60 million. Meanwhile, they're throwing out their lunches because they did not like what was on the menu that day.
Well, think about it, Lawrence.
It's crazy.
FEMA stands for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So the way they were able to justify it was this was a migrant emergency. So that money will go to New York. And we saw yesterday, the secretary of that department said whoever hit the send button on that just got fired.
But Steve, to think about how insincere that is. You need $59 million?
That's right.
Do you remember when they got surged here and the buses were dropping off? That was a flat-out emergency where Mayor Adams says, I have no way, we don't have enough tent poles to put up tents quick
But it wasn't a weather disaster.
And it was an emergency by the Biden administration's own creation.
Yes. But they didn't give New York almost anything. New York was pulling out taxpayer dollars here, but don't worry. We have congestion pricing now to fill that gap. Now, there's something else that Donald Trump did that even The Daily Show got behind.
Well, he's getting rid of the paper straws. I don't know anybody who's in favor of it. Here's the president.
Everyday Americans think about it. Remember in the first term he said, why is the water so low in the toilet? He goes, because the new people said, wait, the water's too low.
It's true.
Like, people need more water in their toilets.
This is the stuff people actually talk about. There are the big ticket items, and then there's these little annoyances. You go about your day, long day at work, you go to a bar, get a drink, and then your straw's melted.
That's right. Well, it's so true.
Right, and you got a steel straw, which you know is dirty.
How do you wash that thing?
Yeah.
So you got him bringing back the plastic straw. It's legal, and in fact, I read the executive order. It was beautifully written, talking about everything that you would talk about at a bar regarding a plastic straw. But yesterday we were talking about how if there's one issue that essentially signifies and symbolizes Washington's waste, it costs 3.64 cents to make a penny. which doesn't make any sense. And that is why Donald Trump, although now he's getting dragged into court, said we're going to get rid of the pennies. I heard somebody on the radio, a merchant, say, well, now we're going to have to round everything up.
Yeah, right.
To which case it's like, okay, you just made 4 extra cents.
How do you
Yeah,
do that?
$9.99.
But how do you do that?
If it's $1.99,
You got to go to $10.
go to
Yeah.
yeah, $2.
Or
$2.
$9.95.
Or you just don't list it like that anymore.
You could.
I mean,
whatever
but
you
then
want to
again,
do.
but then taxes are going to be on even ends. Like, who's rounding up? I mean, this.
Brian, it's only a maximum of 4 cents.
I wish he discussed this.
You know what I also read, though? That the nickel cost 14 cents to make. So the
Well, that
penny
doesn't
costs
make any
I
sense.
know. So who knows? Why is all of our money costing more than it's
I
worth?
haven't felt money in like 10 years.
I know, that's what I
mean,
was
I
going to
don't
say.
even know if
There's
I
so
get
many
paid or
people that
not.
aren't
I mean,
even using cash.
Right? I mean, do we get paid?
All we
I
have to
never
do-
see any money.
You don't
You
check
just
your
wave
bank
your
account?
phone
Wow,
and
get
things
on,
get
get on
paid
that.
for.
Right.
All right. Well, so it just goes to show you the common sense. Also, one of the things that Doge is looking at is the vast government real estate.
Yeah.
Look for that real soon. And the vast government workforce. And that is why there was a letter from the Department of Homeland Security to the Secretary of the Treasury. And
This is my favorite story.
It is great. There are 100,000 people who work for the IRS, and 2,500 of them are law enforcement who are deputized to carry a gun. And so what they would do is they would essentially either crack down on employers who have migrants illegally on the payroll, or human trafficking.
Yeah, I think that this is fascinating. And, you know, we learned about these IRS agents with weapons when, under the Biden administration, when he tried to increase the number of IRS agents, and everybody was up in arms about that. And it was like, how do these IRS agents have weapons? What are they going to do with them? Well, this is sort of the outside-the-box thinking that is defining Donald Trump's first month in office, where, you know, Colombia isn't going to accept migrants. Well, now they are. What are we going to do with the Gaza Strip? Well, let's take it over. And now he's finding a way to use IRS agents that are deputized to actually do significant work when it comes to the southern border and tracking down actual
That's where
criminals
they're
and
needed.
criminal enterprises. Follow the money. They have the power to do that.
I thought Tom Holmes was kind of funny. He's like, okay, maybe you can drive people around. He's like, you can bring them back.
Well, because they're not.
Right. Because, I mean,
don't
it's a little
mean
bit
to-
of trolling.
I don't mean.
Because I don't think they even have camouflage stuff.
Right.
I mean, they're going to be in
The-
suit and
the
ties at the border with pocket protectors.
I'm not trying to be insensitive. They are federal agents. But did you see the training videos, the recruitment videos? They didn't sign up to be real cops being on the street every single day. And so I think what you're going to see is many of them quit.
Quit. Yeah,
because they're not good. They
Go to
don't
8-year-old
understand what these law enforcement officers are doing on the day-to-day basis.
Or maybe they'll be behind a desk.
Well, they thought they were
going to
be behind a desk.
Right.
Well, but I
tracking
think
the money on
I think it's a
computers.
troll. This
A
is
total-
a troll.
it's
This
a
is,
total-
oh, you
they're
know
gonna
those
quit.
87,000 agents been paid
Yeah.
for? All right, I can put them. You're going to make me keep them? So I'm
You want
going
to be a cop?
put them busy.
Go to work.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to put you. In all honesty, you have to pay your tax. We're not going to be able to have a country.
Right.
But you don't want people. They said they're only going to go for higher-end people. You know, when you hire all these people, they're going to be going for middle class,
100%.
work class, trying to find out what's going on and all these little odds and ends. And also, I think Donald Trump is very aware that Letitia James just trolled through all his 30 years of business paperwork, trying to find anything that might be but not comply with the ever-evolving tax laws. He says, I'm not going to put the American people through that. So let these guys, you know, go over there with their IRS. I do think they need a wardrobe budget.
No,
They're going to have to change a little.
They have
Some blue
uniforms.
jeans
They have
or
SWAT
corduroys.
teams.
Or corduroys. Something that'll make them fit in a little.
Yeah,
I haven't thought about corduroys in a really long time.
I think about them all the time.
when you walk down the
Yeah,
the
because
hall.
you go one way, they look one direction. You go the other way, they look a little lighter. It was a way of kind of...
Two pants in one.
Right. It was unbelievable. I mean,
That's fiscal
it was
responsibility right
something
there.
to see as a child.
Well, there you go. Listen, this has been a wide-ranging conversation.
Yeah.
I will say, I just
Welcome
wanted to
to
tell my
Fox
mom for the longest time, she would understand that I would try to explain to her, I'm growing. I'm like, they're too short. She's like, well, one more year and then I'll give them to your brother.
That was your
Yeah.
mother?
Yeah, my mother. I would go, listen, we shouldn't be... I don't
Gotta
think I should be
save.
seeing
You were the
someone like
youngest
my
one.
son.
You got all
I was
the-
middle.
Oh, you were
I was middle, yeah. I put up with a lot. But, and by the way, the
As
hardest
soon as
thing
your
to do it-
younger brother needed it.
Right.
And you got
So there's no outfit that you hated more than a turtleneck and corduroy
Yeah,
pants.
I remember I fell on my corduroys, and I was like, good, because I ripped them, and I'm like, this is one way to get rid of them. I get up the next day.
Stitched them up.
The patches. I got designer patches on the knees. I'm like, I don't want designer patches. Nobody's got
this to be
designer
in.
patches.
Was it the same color as the corduroy?
No, they were a darker brown, but they matched. So evidently that was, you know what I'm talking about?
Did she put one on each side?
Yeah, because
so
they
they were
balance it
symmetrical.
out. Yeah,
So they look like knee pads.
it's
gosh.
incredible. I'm just
She's a good
remembering all
mom.
this now.
The trauma.
Yeah.
That is so
A
funny.
recovered memory.
No.
All right. More on corduroy later, but this memo is the dismissal suggestion is not about the facts in the case or the law, but it's about other considerations, because what the DOJ is asking for is the dismissal saying the indictment limits Adams' ability to help Donald Trump and the migrant crisis here in this city right here. And the indictment threatens to interfere with the June 2025 primary. And to Brooks' point, charges could be brought after the primary if there's something new. But for the most part, it's because of the migrant crisis.
Well, also, this is something that we talked about extensively. Everyone kept saying he needs a pardon. He never needed a pardon.
He hadn't been convicted.
He had been convicted. The case hadn't even gone to trial yet. I said from the very beginning, I felt like the moment Trump got in, his Department of Justice was going to get rid of it just from appearances purposes. This is what the AG is saying. It's not even, yes, of course, to your point, Steve, of, yes, we need his help when it comes to the migrant crisis. But there used to be an appearance issue when it comes to the Department of Justice, that you don't prosecute person if you feel like it shows that you're targeting someone. And that's what the Department of Justice is saying. We don't want to be in the business of targeting political opponents anymore. Just because it looks bad, we don't want that on our reputation, so we're dismissing the charges.
He was probably the mayor that was most in Joe Biden's camp. He said no matter what Joe Biden was doing, all the criticism, he was for Biden. But then when he came out and said, I don't have billions of dollars for these illegal immigrants, the federal government's got to do their job, he was cut off. Next thing you know, they're taking his phone on the street, and then they're pulling him off. He's getting off a plane because he found out his chief of staff's been indicted, and he didn't know what was going on. So, look, I don't think that I didn't dive heavily into the charges. From what people say, what they've seen so far, there was not a lot there. So I'm just saying this in the big picture, and this might be a subtle point, but not a legal point. Everybody was going after Trump for 4.5 years. You know who didn't? You know who didn't stand outside and spray paint anti-Trump slogans in front of Trump Tower? You know who didn't try to indict him and arrest him? Mayor Adams. You know who didn't call him a fascist? He didn't say Donald Trump's my guy, but he just said, well, can we be fair? I think Eric and the family appreciate it because they're trying to run a business that this guy wasn't trying to destroy him, but the Attorney General absolutely was.
Yeah.
Also, it can't be lost on us that Mayor Adams was a co-chair of the Biden re-election campaign. The moment he started to criticize them, the White House started to not take their calls, and they kicked him off as being a co-chair of the campaign. Now, if this mayor is involved in all of this illegal activity, why didn't they notify the president? Why did it become convenient when he started to criticize the administration? And I think the Department of Justice is making it right now.
All right, we got some more news to get you. Starting with this is a man of his word.
Right. You couldn't get a staffer to get up in the morning to give it
Well,
to him.
actually, somebody slept under the couch with the jersey, and they're there right now and just handed it to me.
Really?
So here you go. Steve, I'm sorry, but you are going to have to wear this at some point during the show.
Well, the bet was I would wear it for 1 minute because he would have worn the Kansas City Chiefs thing for 1 minute.
60 seconds.
Our program is 180 minutes long. I'm not going to wear it this minute. Jesse, you're going to have to watch all 180 minutes to see me wear the jersey for 1 minute. I'm not going to do it now, so stand by.
You won't tell him when.
Here, just until then, just put this right back where you got it.
Good.
All right. 24 minutes now after the hour. They didn't win in November. Super Bowl to Daytona 500. Unbelievable.
You don't need to hear this from me, Brian, but you did a really good job reading those sports.
Oh, thank you. I felt like I was being really evaluated by the person who usually carries the sports model.
Let's see if she lets you do it in the next hour.
Yeah, let's see.
We'll
Keep my fingers crossed.
2 more hours.
Secretary Hegseth's doing that is exactly why he wanted the job.
Yep.
He wants to find out from people who are actually serving overseas in positions. It's great to get a report from a general, and I'm sure they're competent and good. But when you sit down and talk to people and you say, I'm one of you, about your age, a little bit older, what's happening in the field? Do you feel like the communication's good? What about your families? Are your families, the school's okay with for you people that are going to school on base? And what if they've told you enough advance when they're going to deploy you into Iraq or over to Syria? And if you're going to pull out of Syria, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a trip over there to find out those 900, which is actually 1,700, total's 900, in Syria. Like, what kind of threat are you under? Who's going to control that prison of ISIS fighters if we pull out? So instead of getting a report and a promise, he gets to see face to face. I think he's going to be so active. That's also going to help the holistic recruiting because you've got a Secretary of Defense who cares about the person.
Well, Brian, I saw that in action with the Secretary of Defense last week. There was many a time that he has the generals in there and he has the rank and file that's in there. He would meet with the generals. Right. They would have classified, unclassified meetings, but then he would kick them out. And he wanted to talk directly with the servicemen and women, E7 and below, so he can get an unfiltered view, and they felt comfortable talking with him. He's there this morning, working out with them. All of this is going to not only boost the morale, but the recruitment as well. And I think that's the big thing. We need more war fighters right now.
Yeah.
Right. And also, remember what Donald Trump ran on and what he talked about around the inauguration. So look for Pete to also discuss with the troops over there the fact that Donald Trump has wanted to reduce our footprint in Europe by 20,000. He wants to bring 20,000 American soldiers home. The other thing is Trump has said in the past that he's going to demand a subsidy from our European partners. In other words, whatever troops are left that work for the United States, the people in Europe are going to have to pay for it. So look for that to be part of the conversation.
Their fair share.
Just to build on what you said, Richard Haas over the weekend, you know, like everyone likes to criticize Trump's unorthodox foreign policy. He said, I like the Europe thing. He said, because the only thing that's going to get them to start spending money on defense is to know that America will not be sitting there watching their back. The other thing you wave in is if Ukraine falls to Russia, we're going to have to put so much more money in to have more troops and more fortifications in around the other NATO neighbors, especially the Baltics. It's going to cost everybody more money. That's why it's important for Ukraine to hold.
Yeah, and on defense spending, that's something that Donald Trump brought up with Bret Baier during their interview. When it comes to Canada, even, he said that Canada spends the lowest amount in NATO in defense spending because they assume that America is going to protect them, which, of course, we would. But he said that's one of the things that grinds his gears and just gets under his skin and says, you got to pay your fair share or become a 51st state, which is very unique.
If he pulls out 20,000, suddenly the Europeans are going, okay, we're going to have to do more. And that's the point.
Poland really wants more troops. They'll even name the base after him.
We like it.
He goes, if you would build a base in Poland, well, name it after you. That's good.
They're smart.
That's a good move.
They understand. They understand who to negotiate with.
It wouldn't be the first Trump name on a building.
He wouldn't have to pay for it.
Overseas in Poland. All right, all that's going on overseas.
Because that was the whole goal. And I remember when Congressman Cuellar said, you need to show video of them being turned around and going back. And I thought, why? He goes, that's all they see in Central and South America because then it's no longer worth the money. The question is, Peter, if the numbers keep staying low, I wonder how long you need military out there. Soon they're going to have to maybe decrease the numbers.
For as long as Donald Trump is president.
Any information on where they're coming from? I know the Department of Justice is saying they're going after the person. Is this a holdover that's turning this information over? What's the latest on this?
Hard to speculate about who it is, but Tom Homan is really steamed.
Yeah,
and
he is.
Tom Homan has the president's ear, and so this is, it is very unusual, even though there are constant leak investigations in Washington, it's very unusual to have the commander-in-chief himself so invested in trying to figure out who is leaking. It seems like it is coming from somebody with knowledge that only a small group of people would have. And the small group gets smaller and smaller and smaller until they figure out who the leak is. And they have different ways of figuring this out. Sometimes they try to flush out leakers by telling a small group false information to see if the false information gets out there. And so they have some tricks, and
they say they're going to get to the bottom of it.
They'll try.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, they say it's the FBI. Tom Homan accuses the FBI of putting officers' lives at risk by leaking ICE details. He thinks it's out on the West Coast. So, I mean, Kash Patel can't get there quick enough.
I know.
We'll see what happens.
Well, and law enforcement officers swear an oath to
That's right.
not do that. And there are a lot of policies on top of that, HR policies that they would be violating. But if whoever is leaking the information that is tipping people off to these law enforcement raids, they are facing severe federal penalties.
Absolutely. And the law enforcement could get hurt, and that's the worry. Peter, thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Percent of them were released into the country.
Yeah.
I want to know who those 303 people are.
Right?
Because it's like, hey, it's essentially a brick wall now.
Well,
Don't bother.
Part of the reason why the numbers are so low is because they're not even allowed to cross. So, for example, you used to have a lot of migrants come across the border and they just surrender to ICE. I'm sorry, to Border Patrol.
Right. And they would have to ask, are you seeking asylum?
Seeking asylum. Some of them went through the app. They did multiple factors. Well, what's happening now, when you see Border Patrol or the military see these folks, or if you see them in the Rio Grande or something like, they're saying, turn back around.
Right.
You can't jump if you try to jump the fence, they're going to use, pepper spray. They're going to use any tool, the bean bags, or they're going to physically push you back across the border. So there used to be this posture of just letting them come across. Yeah. That's no longer the case.
You know what is a forgotten part of the story is we're talking a lot about the migrants, but the people who live on ranches and farms along the southern border. We've all visited those people and done pieces down there. They said that they felt completely forgotten by the Biden administration, who just let hundreds of migrants across their property, and many of them live in, all of them live in very rural areas where the police department is very far away, and they felt threatened for their safety.
Of course. Right.
I spoke to a woman who had a 14 and 12-year-old daughter.
I remember.
And the woman was teaching them how to use a gun just in case anything happened. So, I mean, what a relief to those Americans who now feel that their property is more safe. So, this is private land.
And just to sweeping on everything we just discussed, there's going to be a huge sweep out in California. They announced it already of illegals, and they're already pushing back. I'm watching video this morning, pushing back with the whole California state college system. Pro-Palestinian, anti-ICE protests, the ass-backwards state that is. And then you have this stat that came out. You wonder why people weren't feeling the employment. The employment numbers are down. The economy's doing great. Part of it is, since January 2020, 88% of employment growth went to immigrants this year. And illegal immigrants is up 4.7 million compared to that last year. So the people who are getting the jobs in America are here illegally, temporarily. So we're not feeling the job increase. People are benefiting from illegals working here. So that goes to the overall picture of how come you're telling me the economy's great and I don't feel it?
Because it ain't us.
Because it isn't us getting the jobs.
Well, the southern border is feeling it because the New York Post has got an exclusive story this morning talking about how they're seeing people, they either are looking at these numbers and they're turning around. Right. Or they're already heading back. They're heading south. The flow of migrants north is slowing. Way down. And now it's picking up, going back south. It's like, they're not going to let us in.
They said in Honduras last week they discovered a group of 25 migrants from Venezuela and Cuba traveling south back to Nicaragua. Another group of 23 from Honduras, Venezuela, Panama, and El Salvador turning back from Mexico. So they're interviewing them as they're leaving. That's the goal. Send the message. Put your Biden
That's why the
shirts away.
cartel is upset right now.
All right, we got some more news to get you starting with this. A necktie is enough to get out of the Jesse Waters set?
Yes, we looked for an Eagles jersey yesterday at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have gotten so many messages from people who saw me an hour ago say, we have a 180-minute show. I will wear it sometime in that 180 minutes.
Oh, good tease.
And people said, okay, put it on. I will put it on in the next hour.
For 1 single minute?
For 1 minute.
Okay.
Jesse, I'm going to pay it off. I'm a man of my word.
Can we put a clock up?
I think we have the ability.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I'll put the timer up.
All right, let's put a clock up.
I think that's important.
All right.
Got to make sure it's a minute.
And I will have a smile.
Will you put your jacket on over the jersey or just the jersey?
Then you can't see the jersey.
All right.
And by the way, you know who put this into the show 3 times this morning?
The producers.
And what is the producer's name?
Sarah.
What's Sarah's last name?
Eagle.
Oh.
Eagle. Sarah Eagle.
Isn't that a great name?
I'll put it on, Sarah Eagle.
That's a stage name. That's
in the next hour.
She definitely works for Fox.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
All patriotism, Sarah.
Absolutely. Middle name is Bald. Feds told fans.
Law enforcement.
You got a gun?
No, yeah.
You say you want to help keep America safe?
Lawrence, I think it's such a smart idea, too.
Yeah, let's do
and he mentioned this during his first speech after the inauguration in Nevada. And the way he phrased it, the president phrased it, was, we're going to send those IRS agents to the border. And it did seem like a joke. But now it seems like there's actually meat behind this plan. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said this yesterday. She said, ICE needs IRS agents to assist and serve on interagency task forces to help build complex cases that blend tax, immigration, and money laundering. So, I mean, I don't view this, we need to get more details out, as a demotion or a troll to these IRS agents.
Repurposing.
I think that this is really good work that they could be doing. I mean, you're pushing papers, you're doing, boring IRS audits, and then you start to work on money laundering.
Well, you're talking about one of the most egregious criminal enterprises, which is the cartel. It's all about the human trafficking, the people, and the drugs. And there's a big operation behind that. And the Border Patrol has been filling their tunnels. There's businesses that are tied to these groups. They're going to be on the run, and they're going to be looking for ways to regroup. So why not have them investigate?
I think it's part of that whole Doge mentality. Got to make government more efficient. So we have too many IRS agents, and they're harassing middle and middle class, working class people. They were supposed to only focus on those horrible rich people, but now it's spread out to everybody. And by the way, the ultra rich have ultra expensive accountants who are great at giving the Heisman to the IRS. So that's why they went after everyone. He said, okay, maybe I can't fire you, but I could put you in a place where we need you. I think a small portion, like you said, Carly, will be doing some important stuff. But the other thing is, I think he wants them to quit. I think he wants him to quit.
100%.
Because, basically, you hear Todd Holman last night with Sean, he goes, yeah, I'll have them back up, drive people around. I'm like, really? That's not why you go to accounting school.
Yeah.
Well, to drive people
Maybe
around.
A mini troll.
Right.
Maybe a mini troll, not a total troll.
But so which cartel are you from? How do you make small talk? As you drive back around, you're not going to believe it. Do you guys have a checkbook you want me to balance while you're waiting for a holding tank? So I'm not sure how this is going to work out.
Right. Ultimately, we need the IRS because the federal government needs to run on the money that we do the fleet.
Yeah.
Oh, keep in mind, who is the brand new IRS commissioner? Billy Long. Billy Long from out in the Midwest. I've known him for a number of years.
Related to Shelley Long from Cheers?
Absolutely not. Billy Long, probably watching right now, he'll call my phone in a moment. Billy Long famously, when he was in Congress, ran on abolishing the IRS. And so you combine the fact that there's that mentality, is this a necessary evil? Yes, we've got to fund the government. But at the same time, Elon Musk people want access to the technology that the IRS is using right now because they want to figure out how they can automate it. Yeah. When you think about it, why does a human have to look at a bunch of numbers when a machine with AI can do it that fast, do the whole thing in less than a second rather than taking 3 weeks to go through somebody's complicated
Well, what about this? You get one of those robots that look like humans to actually do the work.
Those are scary.
Right?
But they are the future.
No more robots.
Okay, so we're talking
look friendly.
Yeah, we're talking about funding right now, and something was revealed yesterday on the funding front.
Stunning.
And, let's go back to when Hurricane Helene hit and Western North Carolina was decimated, and the aid just wasn't coming in quickly enough. And on the campaign trail, Donald Trump and many Republicans made the point, FEMA is misappropriating.
That is $37 trillion over budget and amassing every day. We have to go make hard choices. None of this is pro-life or pro-traditional conservative thought. These are getting some of the crap out of our budget that these private companies and now the federal government is starting to do. So let's just talk about the other thing the president's going to be talking about today. King Abdullah is coming to town, and he is going to going to be in around 11 o'clock. He's going to meet one-on-one
King of Jordan.
King of Jordan, and he is going to meet one-on-one with the president of the United States, the second leader, at which time the president is going to say, it's time for you in Egypt to step up and take some of these Palestinians. They can't live in that rubble. I'm buying it. I'm going to pave it. We're going to get it going, build some condos, and stop telling me you won't take these guys in. The problem with Egypt and Jordan is they took in the Palestinians before, and they wreaked havoc in their countries, and they kicked them out. That's pretty much the problem Israel's dealing with today. Here's President Trump on what he saw on those released hostages that Hamas held for over 400 days and how malnourished they look and the flashback he got to the Holocaust, which led him to a deadline.
Hundreds. Every time Israel gets 2 and 4, and they get hundreds of terrorists to go back to the
21
battlefield.
hostages for 730 Palestinians so far.
And
21.
It's
And
crazy.
the thing that led the president to say that is Hamas came out with a statement yesterday accusing Israel of going against the ceasefire deal now and saying that
Sending
they're
mixed
not going
messages.
to release the hostages that are supposed to be released on Saturday. So now there's a pause on their end, and you just heard Donald Trump. The thing that stood out to me about what he said yesterday is you would never hear a message like that from the Biden administration.
No, don't.
And the families of the hostages are so grateful for that strong messaging because what was being done before wasn't working. So you have to pivot and send a strong message, and there could be renewed hope to get all the hostages home. I spoke to the parents of Edon Alexander, who has been in Gaza. He's
Taking a stand. He's saying, look, I've had enough of this crap. Let's go ahead and do it now. And if not, and we heard him say before the inauguration, there's going to be hell to pay. Let's find out what that looks like on Saturday.
Something has to change there. And I know there are some people that don't like the president's proposal, but the other countries are going to have to accept some of the people there. Iran has one mission. They want to unite the Muslim world, the Islamic world, and get them all to hate the West and hate Israel as well. These countries have had these same people, and they go back to their terrorist ties as well when they invited them into their own country. So if you don't want to accept them, then you're going to have to go with the other proposal.
Yeah, the problem Iran has, Sunnis hate them.
That's exactly right.
So you're going to divide the Arab world. The only reason the Abraham Accords got it done, they had to bypass the Palestinian situation because it's untenable. Don't let anyone tell you the two-state solution's got a future. It doesn't.
We've
if
been
you
saying
talk
it for
to people in that area, they don't want it. They like to talk about it in the West and certain leadership in the Middle East, but it's not practical. That ship has sailed, if they ever had a ship.
Well, there are still 2 American Israeli hostages in Gaza right now. American Israeli hostages, and we're praying that they come home safely.
Yep.
It's going to be an interesting weekend.
All right, turning to your headlines, the man accused.
You have agreed to put this on for 1 minute. If
All right.
we could put the clock
The floor is
up
yours.
right now, not
Can
yet.
we put a clock in the corner?
You can't start the clock until he actually has it on, and it goes over the chin.
I'm going to
Once
go
it
ahead.
goes up below
I'm going
the
to start the
chin,
time.
Okay.
The clock can start.
Timer is too early.
Here, I got my phone.
We
All
put
right.
the
I'll
clock
time
on.
it out for you.
I should point out, this is Brian Westbrook's jersey. Know who he was?
Who?
He was like Villanova's best NFL player in history. And
Okay, it's over the chin.
my son
Howie
Peter.
Long might be upset by that.
Well, I'm just telling you.
The timer has started.
All right.
All right, you look good
Oh,
in
my God.
green.
52
Please,
more
don't tell me
seconds.
we have to hear this song. Why do we all
Come on, let's
have
all
to
stand
suffer?
up.
Oh, no, let's not. Let's not.
Why do we all have to suffer to hear this song?
I didn't make this bet. My team wasn't in it.
My team was. They didn't show up.
All right, so Steve, you got to stand up for a minute.
All right, so what would you like to say to Jesse Waters? Do you have a message for him? Just dance moves.
Wow. He did it.
Okay.
Promises
You
made,
got 20?
promises kept.
You have
22
22
more
seconds. You
seconds
still have
left.
22 seconds. Why don't you just wait it out? Let's just wait. Don't even say it.
All right.
Let's not even
How
say
does it feel? Does it burn?
No. You know what burns? All the emails and texts I'm getting from people
10
who say,
seconds.
you should have kept the bet.
5.
We were just waiting until now.
2.
Maximum viewage.
1.
And
It's over.
it's 1 minute.
Yes.
Take it off.
Your
Right there.
punishment is over.
You're done. You did
It's
it.
over, Steve.
You know what?
Stop the watch.
Jesse, I'm going to wear it through the commercial.
Okay.
I'm not taking it off. And by the way, the Eagles were much better than the Kansas City
I think
Chiefs.
the
deserve to
score
win the
indicates
game.
that. I'm pretty sure, yeah. I'm thinking if they had a choice, they would have ended it at halftime. And would have saved us a lot of time. And they could have greased the polls early in Philadelphia. Judge, is it okay to go to break?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
Steve?
Fly, Brian, fly.